Black Hawk, Colorado was once known as the City of Mills and is one of Colorado's oldest cities. Now, this old mining town is a premier gaming destination, and if you're a poker player, you know it as the home of the HPT. Hello, everyone. I'm Chris Hansen. With me is Fred Bevel, and the HPT is once again a mile high in the Colorado Rockies at the Golden Gates Casino and Poker Parlor here in Black Hawk, Colorado. This tour stop favorite has been breaking HPT attendance and prize pool records for years. And this time, Colorado has raised the bar to a whole new level. Just under 700 players entered, generating a prize pool worth over $1 million, the biggest prize pool in HPT history. After 4 day one flights, this massive field is now down to 6. And with almost $300,000 up for grabs for our newest HPT champ, you can feel the excitement in the air. This is real people winning unreal money. This is the HPT.
Name's Phil Martin from Colorado Springs, Colorado.
Craig Casino, I'm from Winfield, Illinois.
Hi, my name is Dan Herleman from Tempe, Arizona. I'm a professional poker player.
Hi, my name's Darren Hicks. I'm from Arvada, Colorado.
My name is Jimmy Frisk. I'm a local bar owner, Long Shots Bar and Grill.
Hi, I'm Mary. I'm from Golden, Colorado, and I want to be the first woman in Colorado to win the Mile High Poker for HPT.
There's no comparison. The HPT is the largest poker tournament in the state of Colorado.
Just going to try to play solid poker, going to take advantage of spots when I can. I don't want to donk off chips, but do the best I can.
Short stack, but I still feel confident that I can get it done and take home first place.
Winning this event would mean a lot to me. The money would be great, but having the title would mean just as much.
I'm second in chips right now. My strategy for winning is to remain calm, as I have been, and wait for the right moments.
They come from all walks of life, each with a story to tell. All they need is a chip and a chair. It's an open casting call for those who love the game. This ain't your weekend home game. This is the HPT.
Sit right down, put on your poker face. You with the big dogs now. Better bring your best game. Talk trash all you want. To me, it's all the same. You won't leave with much when you come in second place. And I'm the one with the stack showing 7 to the jack. Gon' cry to your mama, cause I'm sending you back. I'll be the last man standing with the money in my hand. I'll be the last man standing with the money in my hand. Last man standing with the money in my hand. I'll be the last man standing with the money in my hand.
Hello and welcome again to the HPT, where this week we're a mile high in the foothills of the Rocky Mountains. We are at Golden Gates Casino and Poker Parlor in Black Hawk, Colorado. I'm Chris Hansen. This man is Fred Bevel. And Fred, we've been doing this since the very beginning.
Yep.
And tonight on the HPT, we are proud to announce it is our first ever $1 million prize pool on the HPT. Almost 700 players made it happen once again at Golden Gates.
It is amazing. And you know, the Golden Gates Casino has been setting and breaking attendance and prize pool records for years. This time they've really raised the bar. The $1 million prize pool will pay $293,000 to our next champion. And Chris, that kind of money on the line has created a lot of excitement in the room, but it's also raised the pressure and the tension as we've gotten closer and closer to tonight's final table.
A lot of tense faces, a lot of sweating, a lot of nervous wringing of the hands. And those are just the people sitting in the audience ready to watch our final table tonight. As for the final 6 that are ready to go, none of them have been this close to this kind of payday, playing for almost $300,000 tonight on the HPT. Let's get to the table and meet the 6 players all vying for the championship.
In seat number 1, our chip leader. This is Craig Casino from Winfield, Illinois. He's a certified arborist and owns his own company. He's an expert in insect disease control for trees.
You didn't know that.
I did have to Google it, I must admit.
In seat number 2, this is Mary Flurkey from down the road in Golden, Colorado. Mary is self-taught herself how to play poker, but has been playing for 20 years, looking for a biggest cash ever here tonight at our final table.
This is Darren Hicks in seat number 3, one of Arvada's Arizona's finest. He's a police officer from the fine city of Arvada, Colorado, sitting down with $680,000 in chips. Plans to pay off some bills with whatever his share is of this huge prize pool.
In seat number 4, this is Dan Hurleman. He's from Tempe, Arizona, pro poker player who is in town just for this event. He said that's what he loves about playing HPT events is huge prize pools. Well, Fred, none bigger than the one we have here this weekend.
In seat number 5, this is Jimmy Frisk from Arvada, Colorado, a bar owner. And Chris, he's the one that's been here before. He made this final table at this very event in 2009, took 4th place. He's looking to do better than that tonight.
And finally in seat 6, this is Phil Martin, 34 years old, from Colorado Springs, Colorado. No occupation listed, so I'm going to guess it's professional poker player sitting down at tonight's final table.
And here is the money up for grabs. Never seen these kind of numbers before on the HPT. $293,000 going to our next champion. Everybody is guaranteed at least $47,000 for making it this deep.
And here is our starting chip count. Craig Casino with an overwhelming chip lead. He has almost half of the chips in play as we get started with the 6 players remaining.
Phil Martin is the short stack as we start off here at 50 and 100,000 with a 10,000 chip ante.
Phil's going to be first to act. He will fold. Over to Mr. Casino.
Our chip leader wakes up with ace jack suited.
450,000 is the bet. Deuce 6 for Mary Flurkey.
Mary's going to fold. We're on Darren.
And now over to Darren.
Darren folds. We're on Dan.
Darren folds on the button. Now to Dan. In the small blind. He will fold.
Dan folds.
And now the action will be on the big blind.
I said it, so I got to do it. I'm all in.
Jimmy has.
And Jimmy puts all of his chips in the middle. Pocket kings, of course he should.
Craig Casino, the chip leader, on the decision now. $2.345 million to call.
Fred, it sounds like a lot, but that's only a quarter of his stack here at this final table. I think it's a pretty good price to try to eliminate the first player at this final table.
Thank you.
This time.
Craig folds.
Craig is going to wait for a better spot. He's going to fold ace jack. And Jimmy's going to scoop a raised pot with his pocket kings. Probably wanted a little action. Craig wasn't willing to do it.
All right, so next hand here at our final table at Golden Gates Casino and Poker Parlor, Blackhawk, Colorado, $1 million prize pool, the biggest prize pool in HPT history.
Action's being folded around to Dan Hurleman in the 4-seat.
30 years old from Tempe, Arizona, pro poker player. He's been playing poker for 7 years, and his brother taught him how to play.
He is going to raise it up with Jack 8 offsuit, makes it $220,000 to go.
Standard Chris Hansen play there.
We're on Jimmy.
And Jimmy Frisk wakes up with ace 10.
Jimmy makes the call.
Jimmy's going to call.
Phil.
And King 6 for the small blind, Phil Martin.
Phil doesn't have a whole lot of chips to play with here.
Phil folds.
He's going to fold.
Over to Craig.
And over to Craig with 5 deuce. Notice the picture in front of Craig. Those are his grandchildren for some inspiration and good luck. He folds, and so will be heads up with Jimmy and Dan.
Dan making a play from the cutoff, gets called by the button. He'll be out of position the rest of this hand.
The flop is Jack 4-3 with 2 hearts.
Well, Dan has hit top pair. What to do, what to do. A continuation bet is probably expected here no matter what the flop was. And Dan is going to fire, makes it $235,000.
235.
Less than half the pot. Jimmy with just ace high. looks to be folding and will indeed fold. And so the only man with experience at an HPT final table will lose this hand. But Fred, I have a feeling that Dan Hurleman, as a professional poker player, seen plenty of things. He's over $100,000 earned in his life live and over $2 million earned in his life playing online.
$2 million in online play. That is crazy. Oh, look at this. We got an all-in here from Phil in the 6th seat. Queen 8 is good enough for that short stack.
Phil.
And the chip leader is going to make the call with Queen Jack.
We're now on Mary.
Now Jack 9 for Mary. Is she going to get involved in this dance?
Raise was to 370,000, Fred. Thank you, sir.
She will not.
Three callers.
Over to Darren. Darren looks down at Queen 3. And he will be folding, and so Phil will be at risk. It's Queen Jack versus Queen 8.
Phil hoping to find 3 outs on the flop Turner River here.
Craig with his queen.
You fold the other queen?
Jack at risk, of course.
So no queens are coming.
Well, I need an 8. I don't need a queen anyways.
Just an 8.
Pretty irrelevant.
So Phil Martin, the 34-year-old from Colorado Springs, is in bad shape. He needs some help on this flop. And the flop is 4, 8, 10, and Freddie finds that help he needed.
Lightning in a bottle for Phil. He outflops Craig.
Craig does pick up a gut shot straight draw.
Please see the turn card.
And the turn is a 5 of clubs.
No help for Craig there. He's hoping to find a 9 or a jack on the river, or Phil's going to double up.
See the river card, please.
And the river is a 6, and so the short stack doubles up through the chip leader. One really needs it, the other one didn't even notice it just happened. More poker from Blackhawk, Colorado, when we come back on the HPT.
Hi, my name's Darren Hicks. I'm from Arvada, Colorado. I know I'm a short stack. I've been card dead pretty much the whole day, so from here on out, everything's a bonus. I'm not expecting much. I'm a police officer. I've been an officer for about 22 years. Some of the things that we do in my job fall over to the poker table, reading people and stuff like that, but I try to keep it separate. My family supports me in my poker playing. I work full-time with a job, so I don't get to play too often, so I make the most of it when I can. I love the HPT. It's fun, it's a good event, it's local, so it's very convenient for me. I have had some success, nothing like this, but a few cashes, but hopefully we'll make a little more.
Well, Darren sounds like an interesting guy, and maybe next time we're here, we can play a little golf. When he says he's not at the poker table, you usually find him out at the golf course when he's not on patrol. Right now, Darren is our short stack with 530,000 in chips.
All right, Fred.
Darren is going to need to double up and do it quickly. Blinds continue on at 50 and 100,000 with a 10,000 chip ante.
Jimmy's first act, and he's going to fold.
Phil, fresh off his double up, is going to lay it down.
Craig folds, and so now we're back to Mary on the button. She will fold, and so it's a blind versus blind battle.
Can't see mine, can you?
Darren, I haven't even tried to look.
Darren in the small blind, the short stack moves them all in with 10-7 offsuit.
It was an all-in raise. Yes. An all-in raise. Good luck.
And now the decision on the big blind.
310.
310,000 is Darren's all in. It's only 210,000 to call since he's in the big blind.
And the poker pro with 9-3 has to make the call here. So it's amateur versus pro at our final table.
Okay, folks, so
Darren looking to make a play, doesn't have nearly enough chips to get anybody to fold. He got what he wanted. He's ahead. Dan's got 2 live cards.
Showdown here. 17 against 12.
Back there, Fred. Please.
3.
And the flop is deuce 3-7.
Well, both players flop a pair. Luckily for Darren, he's got the better of it. Now Dan is just hoping to find another 3 or a 9 to eliminate Darren.
Oh, the turn is a 9.
How quickly things turn. Now it's Darren hoping to find a 7 or a 10.
Especially since I folded 7-9.
And here comes the river. It is an ace. And Dan is going to win this hand, and Darren Hicks will be the first player eliminated at our final table with $47,000 in cash on his way out.
In 6th place. You came into this obviously with not a whole lot of chips, and you had to pick a spot there. What went through your mind before that hand?
been dead stacked or no cards all day. So had to shove there and typical flopped them and then I got outturned. So that's the way it goes.
Thank you very much, James and Darren. And yeah, that's the thing about the HPT. One night here you are in a casino making $47,000 for a weekend of work, and then tomorrow morning you get up and go back to your real life.
Lucky for us, Chris, our real life involves Patron, staying up late, and MSNBC's lockup.
That's no way to live. I'm going to be honest with you.
It's a pretty humdrum lifestyle.
All right, back to the live action. Mary's going to raise it up with pocket sevens, makes it $200,000.
Mary's been pretty quiet at this final table so far. These players are probably going to pay attention to her raise.
Action coming around to Jimmy with ace 5. The bar owner from Arvada, Colorado.
Long Shots Bar and Grill. He promised us a 2-for-1.
You know, every time we've been here, he has said, I've got a 2-for-1 for you. And as cheap as we are, I can't believe we haven't driven over there right on the spot.
You make a good point. Let's go after this.
All right, so Jimmy calls. Phil also calls in the big blind. And here we go. Flop is Jack, Deuce, 3, couple of spades.
Mary still ahead with her pocket sevens. Jimmy's flopped a gut shot straight draw. Phil just sitting with king high.
Jimmy and Phil both check.
And Mary's going to find out how her sevens are looking. She's going to fire out $200,000.
And a call by Jimmy.
Jimmy, the only one of these two players with a draw, will call.
Phil with king high gets out of the way. Jimmy could just be floating her on the flop to see how she reacts here.
Her flop bet was only about a third of the chips that were in the pots. We'll see what happens. The turn is a 9.
No love for Jimmy with a 9. Mary still ahead.
Jimmy checks, and so Mary's going to bet. She bets $200,000 again into a million-chip pot.
I don't know if Mary's in pot control mode or just trying to bait him in. And it seems like Jimmy's wondering the same thing as well.
Well, for $200,000, you would then put $1.4 million into the pot. Fred, that's 7-1 on your call. You still have an overcard to the board, and you've got that gut shot straight draw.
Well, Jimmy does make the call. Why wouldn't he?
And he checks dark. That's rather interesting. The river is another jack. And Mary's going to be happy to check as well, show her pocket sevens, and take down almost 1.5 million chips.
Well, Mary is going to scoop a big pot, but Chris, she played that hand a little scary. You throw mosquito bite bets like that, it keeps the players in. She's pretty lucky she didn't get outdrawn on.
All right, now I'm joined with a very special guest. You know him, of course, from ESPN and the coverage of the World Series of Poker, Mr. Lon McEachern. Lon,
how are you, sir?
Good. Welcome to Blackhawk, Colorado.
Funny running into you here on the street. Just happen to have lights and cameras set up.
Right,
I'll sit down.
Sure. So you're obviously here to play our event. You did play the event, and tell folks how it went.
I loved it. It was a great feeling. Just the whole atmosphere of the room, of the people, the friendliness of the dealers, everybody come up and saying hi to me and everything.
Sure.
Well, a lot of the guys from the big game, from the World Series, are starting to come on over into your venue. I mean,
Sure.
With Raymer and Danman was supposed to be here, and Darvin Moon, of course, and we see Joe Sebok here, and so I think that is really a credit to you guys, because to see those names coming into this world, there was the small poker tour, that shows you guys do a quality product and really know how to make it fun. It really is. Another tour say, hey, we're for the players, this and that. But, you get down to it, and poker is a national sport, the biggest sport, spectator sport, I think, one of them in the U.S. And to have that feel when you sit down at a table that we're all in this together is really nice. And that's what you guys do for the poker world, and we really appreciate that.
Lon, it was a privilege and an honor to sit down with you, and good luck. And maybe the next interview you and I do will be at an HPT final table where I'm handing you the cash.
Wow, wouldn't that be nice?
Stay tuned.
I'm tearing my eye already.
A lot of fun having Lon out here this week in Colorado. Real good poker player. A lot of people think maybe Norman Chad's a better poker player than he is. But then, Fred, a lot of people think that you're a better poker player than I am. There's not a whole lot of truth in either one of those statements.
Both of them have a pretty good game, as well as this young lady. She's the second in chips. She wakes up with pocket jacks. Mary Flurkey on the action.
Mary makes
will limp in under the gun. That's about 18 different ways of wrong right there.
Well, you know, there's 1,000 ways to play pocket jacks, and they're all bad.
Jimmy makes the call.
She's obviously hoping for someone to raise here so she can repop, but when you limp early, you invite everybody to limp.
Jimmy calls with suited connectors on the button. Phil calls with Jack 9 out of the small blind. And how about our chip leader, Mr. Casino?
You got table full of callers. You're the big blind and the chip leader. He is going to squeeze it. He's going to make it 600,000 to go.
The raises to 600 by Craig.
Well, is this what Mary wanted? Now does Mary make a big play?
Well, I think she should. You certainly don't want to take Jack's 4 away to the flop. This could be very dangerous. You got the 2 big stacks at the final table. About to lock horns here. And Mary is just going to smooth call this with pocket jacks.
Well, I guarantee you that has set off some alarms in the other players.
It's coming. Jimmy folds.
Jimmy priced in with baby connectors. He's going to let it go, and so does Phil.
We have 2 players.
All right, so Mary and Craig will be heads up. Craig will be first to act after we take a look at this flop between our 2 chip leaders. Here comes the flop. It is 4 8-8s with 2 diamonds.
Mary's pocket jack still ahead. Let's see if Craig gets saucy here with his connectors.
I would fully expect him to put out a bet.
Craig's going to wager
$500,000 is the bet.
Is the bet 500.
And now this is where Mary, I think, really has to put Craig's feet to the fire and say, you know what? I know I've got the best hand right now. I'm not letting you outdraw on me with ace-king or king-queen or ace-queen, any of those hands. I'm going to try to take this thing down right now. That's what I'd do if I was Mary.
I agree with you 100%. You got a paired board. You also have 2 suits. You can't just keep smooth calling here. She is going to raise it. A min raise.
Raises to $1 million.
Well, it's not exactly the raise I had in mind, but right now there's got to be all kinds of alarms going off in Craig's mind thinking, okay, she's up to something. She limped and then she called my raise and then min raised me.
Craig took a shot, realized he was beat with that min raise, and boy, I tell you, min raising could be scarier than going all in sometimes.
Absolutely, absolutely. All right, pocket 7s for Dan. He's going to be first to act. And he will raise to $235,000 with his pocket 7s. Down to Jimmy.
Jimmy's going to make the call with Queen Jack.
Phil folds, back over to Craig.
And a fold by Craig over to Mary.
Craig folds and now to Mary.
Mary's got the K9 in the big. $135,000 to complete this raise and see a flop.
You know, it's always fun to meet the players and get to know them a little bit and things you would never guess about a person. Take Mary, for instance. Mary is a champion archer and has an MBA.
That's all you discovered? Oh, buddy, you got to dig a little deeper. She was also on the Howdy Doody show and Captain Kangaroo.
You're right. You are a much better Tom Brokaw than I am.
She is my hero.
Flop is 3-9 Jack as Mary called to see that flop.
Dan has been outflopped. His 7s are no good. Jimmy has flopped top pair, and Mary has flopped middle pair.
Dan's going to check.
Everyone is checking now over to Jimmy.
Jimmy with top pair is going to see how strong his hand is. He's going to fire $260,000.
Zero is the bet by Jimmy.
And now Mary Flurkey with middle pair. Doesn't look like she's going anywhere. Mary, a registered nurse, said her family is ecstatic about the success she's had in poker.
Dan folds.
She's going to make the call. Dan's going to get out of the way.
So Jimmy and Mary will see the turn.
Jimmy does not look too happy that Mary smooth called him here.
And the turn is a 10.
Well, now Jimmy picks up an open-ended straight draw to go with his top pair. Mary picks up a gut shot straight draw.
Both players are going to check. Here comes the river.
Let's go ahead and see the river.
It's a 5 of clubs.
And Jimmy's got the best of it. Mary does not choose to bet that club as a scare card, so Jimmy's going to try to get some value out of it.
360.
360K is the bet by Jimmy. 360.
And then as a small Mary-sized bet to Mary.
And it doesn't look like Mary is going to go anywhere. She's going to want to see what he's betting. It's really tough to not pay him off when you're looking at $1.6 million in the pot and only $380,000 to call. She couldn't help herself. She's going to see the bad news.
Could have seen it later.
And Jimmy is going to scoop a 2 million chip pot, much needed for our one-time final tableist.
More poker from our $1 million prize pool here in Blackhawk when we come back. Thanks for coming back to the HPT with Fred Bevel. I'm Chris Hansen. Time for our Pro Tip of the Week from 2004 World Series of Poker main event champion Greg Raymer. Tonight's topic, you got to the final table. Now, how do you take the thing down without busting out first?
So here's a spot you might not have had to deal with, but hopefully you will in the future. How do you handle the pressure, the nerves, whatever, when you make the TV table? Now, for most tournaments, you don't make the TV table unless you make the final table. In a few tournaments, though, you might find yourself at the TV table even at the beginning of the tournament on day one. How do you deal with this unexpected situation? Well, of course, if you're not familiar with anything, you might be nervous and uncomfortable. What I'm going to recommend is that you just do your best to pretend you're not on a TV table. Just forget about it, because it really shouldn't affect how you play. Don't worry about what you say or do, just be yourself. Hopefully yourself is a nice enough person with enough personality that it'll look good on TV. But I tell you, I would rather win while being myself and saying or doing a couple of foolish things than trying to be someone else and having that inhibit my normal flow, my normal game, and not winning. So just be yourself, ignore the cameras, just don't pick your nose and you'll be fine.
Wish you would have given me that advice before we filmed.
The first couple of seasons were very rough of the HPT.
A lot of nose picking.
All right, Jimmy Frisk, who has been at a televised final table at this very table before on the HPT, will fold. And Phil folds, and now over to our chip leader, Craig Casino, with Jack 3 of hearts.
Picture of his beautiful grandkids there underneath this whole cam.
Third time was a charm for Craig at the HPT this week. He re-entered 3 different times, and I think it's worth the investment. Here he is at the final table, playing for almost $300,000.
At one point during day 2, Craig was down to just 20,000 in chips. Actually, Bernard Lee, our friend on the HPT, had to tell him, hey, you got some chips left. And now look at him as the chip leader. But he is on a decision right now. He made a play with Jack 3 from the button. Dan woke up with a wired pair and shoved them all in. Action on Craig.
And Craig will fold, and Dan is going to pick up the chips from Mr. Casino. Let's take a look at our updated chip counters. There has been some movement of chips around the table. Craig still our chip leader, but Fred, it's not as wide a lead as he used to have.
Mary is hot on his heels. Jimmy not far behind her. Right now, Phil is the short stack, looking to double up quick.
Craig's going to be first act on this hand as blinds are still 50 and 100K with a 10,000 chip ante. He will fold.
All right, so Craig folds.
Mary will fold, and over to Dan. Dan looks down at Queen 7. Not only is Dan a professional poker player, but also has a pharmacy degree. He is a doctor of pharmacy.
Wow, he looks awfully young. What is he, like Doogie Howser or something?
Doesn't look anything like my pharmacist. There's no white lab coat. He's not counting any pills. Of course, it never occurred to me they wouldn't have to do that if they weren't at the pharmacy.
Let's just tip her hat that the guy has a backup plan to professional poker.
You
That's
bet.
a good one.
Well, here's Phil with 7 deuce suited in the big blind. Feel like putting it all on 7 deuce suited?
Phil makes the call.
No, but he will call the small raise.
So we have 2 players.
And we will see a flop between Phil and Dan. Phil fairly committed to this pot. The flop is 3-5 king, and it's all diamonds.
Well, that's as good of a flop as you can hope for with the worst drawing hand in poker. Hits the flush.
And checks it over to Dan.
And here comes the standard continuation bet.
Dan wagers.
Dan bets enough to put Phil all in. Phil easily makes the call. And
Dan is what you call drawn dead.
Nice double up.
Indeed, and now the one-time short stack is going to go over $1 million in chips.
And Fred, I can tell you there is no better feeling than drawing dead on the flop. I mean,
know it well.
Living that in life, that is the only way to go.
Bring the cards in, please.
Thank him for not raising more. I could call
Phil reluctantly put those chips in, thought about it for half a second, then okay, fine, I'll call with 7-deuce suited. And look at that, 7-deuce suited flops, a flush, and doubles up.
Flush wins the hand.
Thanks.
Phil has the flush.
Phil not going down, not waiting for ace king at the final table, but doubling up and staying alive.
So how much longer are we going to have to wait? We've been here all day, and the crew's not ready. I don't know. I stand here. They say, be ready at this time. I'm not ready at this time. How many autographs have you signed today?
I signed a few. Chris,
I've signed one only autograph. They don't even know who I am.
you know what it is? Every time you get hungry, Chris, you turn into Lon McEachern. You get all weird. Hold on. Just trust me. Just try this.
It's a long day doing that.
Yeah, it's a long day. Feel better?
You know, Fred, you're right. I feel better already. I don't know what got into me. I'm so sorry. I'm sorry. All right. Craig Casino is our chip leader and got himself a little bit more distance away from Mary, and Dan and Phil right now are two short stacks at the final table.
Short stacks with over $1 million in chips. Little room to play. Blinds continuing on at 50 and 100,000 with a 10,000 chip ante.
Ace-4, Phil just doubled up, and now he's raising. 260,000 with ace-4 offsuit over to Craig with suited connectors.
Looks like Mr. Casino is a fan of the suited connectors. He's going to make the call.
Mary folds, and Dan folds. We're on Jimmy.
And everyone's now folding to Jimmy. And Jimmy looks down at 6-7 of hearts. Might be worth a peek at the flop.
It's a tempting hand when you got a raise and a caller.
You're in the big blind. You already invested. Come on, just throw them in. It only hurts for a second. Just, there you go. I call. So 3 players will see this flop together.
Phil is going to the flop with a lead.
And the flop is 6-4 deuce.
Well, Jimmy gets the best of it. He flops top pair. Craig has got a gut shot straight draw. Phil hits middle pair, and he's going to shove the rest of his stack in the middle.
1.12 million to make the call. Craig Casino's going to be first to act here after the all-in. He's got a gut shot straight draw and 2 overcards to the board. And then Jimmy behind him, who flopped top pair. But Fred, you flopped top pair with 6-7. That can't be easy to call either. Let's see what Craig's going to do.
Well, Craig is going to get out of the way. That's awfully big price to pay on a gutter. Jimmy with top pair. This is a much harder decision. If anything, he's probably worried about his kicker.
I really hate to double you up.
I don't mind.
You want to call?
Sure.
Well, Jimmy obliges Phil's request, and I think Phil was trying to rope-a-dope him a little bit.
You got to watch out what you ask for sometimes.
Ace-4 over here.
Well, Jimmy is ahead, but Phil has some outs. He'll be looking for another 4 or an ace.
Say no, you fold. You don't fold anyways. Doesn't matter what I say. Let's go ahead and see that turn card.
390 is a lot.
And the turn is an 8 of diamonds.
I know, that's why I bet it. I mean, there's 700 in there.
And it's an ace or a 4 for Phil, or he is going to leave us in 5th place.
Go and see the river, please.
And the river is another 4. Phil is going to double up and stay alive. And Jimmy lamenting the fact that he was this close to having the very dangerous Phil Martin out of this tournament.
Big swing hand here for both of these players.
One person today to see you twice.
Well, that's not what he wants to hear.
A little more than 2 outs. I know what you mean. I had to push. You had to call. You're supposed to win, but I did. I had to suck out. You know, action player, we got to suck out.
Jimmy said he didn't want to double him up, and Fred, that is exactly what he has done. Blinds have gone up. We are at 60 and 120,000, still a 10K ante.
Jimmy did everything right. The deck just disagreed with him. And Phil, now huge, as he's had 2 double-ups in the last 4 or 5 hands.
I got to wonder if he said, do you want me to call? If he'd have said no, if he would have made the call pre-flop, Phil said, sure, go ahead. Jimmy did it, and in the end, Phil got exactly what he wanted. That was his double-up.
And now the action is on Jimmy. Let's see if he's steaming or not.
Call.
He's going to limp in on the button with ace-6 offsuit.
And Jimmy makes the call. We're on Phil.
Saying to Phil, you know what, if you can play ace rag and make it a winner, maybe I can do it too. Phil folds over to Craig.
And Craig.
Craig in the big blind will check with 8-9 offsuit.
Let's go ahead and see the flop, please.
And here comes our flop from Golden Gates Casino in Black Hawk, Colorado. It's 5, Queen, 4, all hearts.
Craig checks over to
Well, Craig has picked up a flush draw, and Jimmy, with just ace high, is going to bet. Throws 160,000 chips into the pot.
Craig will call.
Craig makes the call. Let's go ahead and see that turn card, please.
And here comes the turn. It is a 6 of diamonds.
Well, now Jimmy has a pair to work with.
Craig's got a gut shot straight draw along with his flush draw.
And Craig is going to be the one taking the lead in betting here on the turn. He fires 350,000.
And a call has been made by Jimmy.
Jimmy makes the quick call.
Go ahead and see that river card, please.
All right, and now here comes the river. It is a 5 of clubs, pairing the board. And Craig is first act.
The only way Craig can win this hand is if he can make the right bet to push Jimmy off.
You know, Fred, when you play poker, you got to put the stories together. What is the story that Jimmy has in his head right now?
Well, he puts the screws to him, bets 800,000, and Jimmy folds the best hand. That is why he is the chip leader.
Fred, the guy was down to 20,000 chips, has been our chip leader this entire final table. He is definitely on a roll.
Craig Casino. I'm from Winfield, Illinois. Winfield is known as the geographic center of the universe. My wife Susan's a great woman. We met as 36 years ago. We went on to have 5 children. Was on the police department for a while, but we had 5 kids, and now we've got 5.5 grandkids, and just having a great time with that. We're fortunate they all live close by, and we get to see them a lot, so we're pretty happy about that. My last name is Casino, and it is real. You know, I hear a lot about it. And actually, the funny part, my wife's maiden name was Slott, S-L-O-T-T. So the first time we went to Las Vegas, they couldn't, I had to prove who I was everywhere because they couldn't believe that was really my name, my driver's license. And we said, well, if you really want to see something, we'd take hers out and show them that.
More poker from Black Hawk, Colorado next on the HPT.
Name's Phil Martin from Colorado Springs, Colorado. Short stack, but I still feel confident that I can get it done and take home first place. I like Daniel Garner's game a lot just because it's very similar to mine. We play very similar styles. We're very loose, aggressive. We love semi-suited connectors. We love hands like that. We're not looking to get the nuts and get it in. We're open for aggression, you know. Yeah, the money I win from this tournament will help increase my bankroll, allow me to play some bigger cash games. I'm more of a cash game specialist in tournament. Also allow me to expand my tournament buy-ins and play some bigger tournaments.
Well, that last big pot, Craig Casino's getting himself back into comfortability mode here with almost a 2-1 chip lead over Mary.
Jimmy right now is the short stack, but the short stack is 1.7 million in chips. Everybody's got a little room to play here.
Dan folds.
It's the Dolly Parton hand for Jimmy. He's going to fold.
We're on Phil. 6.
King 4 for Phil. Makes it 320. Over to Craig with 6-4 of spades.
Phil's picked up some chirping chips in the last few hands. He's not afraid to splash around. But this man right here is not afraid to stand up to an aggressor either. Looks like Craig is staging a call. And that's what he does with 6-4.
And now over to Mary. The registered nurse living in Golden, Colorado will fold. And so we'll be heads up with Phil and Craig.
Boy, Craig making the call with 6-4. He must know something about Phil we haven't seen yet.
And the flop is ace-6 queen. He knows out-flopping him.
He has out-flopped him, but he can't be comfortable with that texture. Phil with the button and the pre-flop razor. Let's see what he does here. Gonna let that ace-high flop go by.
So let's see the turn as we play for almost $300,000 tonight on the HPT. The turn is a 10 of spades.
Well, Craig had the lead going into the turn. Now he adds a flush draw to his repertoire. Phil, with just king high here, is going to have a decision to make. Looks like Craig is going to bet. Oh, how much is that, Chris?
600,000 is the bet. So back over to Phil with king high. No, thank you. And Craig Casino continues to take money away, kind of like a casino, at this final table.
He is zigging and zagging at all the right spots. He's making bets that works. He's getting value out of his hands. He's a long ways away from that 20,000 chip stack he had a few hours ago.
Fred, I'm just sour because I have not figured out how to play blackjack. Either that or I haven't figured out when to stop playing blackjack.
I think that's the key right there.
You're right. More craps in my diet would be better.
I'm not going to say a word.
Craig is going to limp in with ace-3 over to Mary. She will fold.
Mary hasn't seen a whole lot of good hands so far at this final table. She's sitting quiet.
Dan folds. And so now action is going to be on Jimmy in the big blind. And he will check. So Jimmy and Craig will see this flop together.
Let's go ahead and see the flop, please.
And the flop is 5, 9, 10 with 2 hearts.
Well, Jimmy has flopped the best of this with a pair of 5s. He's going to see how good those 5s are. Fires just 140,000 in chips.
140,000. 140 is the bet.
Craig in position. Might want to float Jimmy here.
Craig decides not to float. Nope, he's going to take the other option and raise. And Jimmy shows a 5 and folds.
Once again, Craig Casino winning hands with his bets when his cards aren't good enough. He keeps stacking the chips.
First act will be. I need to buy those in.
Craig's first acts, 6120K are still the blinds. He's got King Jack under the gun. Full ring, not so good. But with 5 players and a mountain of chips here in the Rockies, let's go ahead, play it.
Why not? Mary Flurkey's been pretty quiet. She continues her folding ways. Dan's going to get out of the way.
And now to Jimmy. He folds over to Phil.
Boy, Jimmy still looks like that suck out is affecting him a little bit.
Pocket 9s are all in from Phil Martin.
All in. So re-raise all in.
1.12 million is the amount to call for Craig. Not a snap call here, but Craig is going to think it over for just a second.
Well, he has seen Phil get cagey with hands that are less than premium before. He might be remembering that.
The raise is to 1,610,000, Fred.
Call.
He is going to make the call. He figures he's got 2 live cards, and that's good enough.
King Jack.
And I think Craig is not surprised here to see that he is behind, but with 2 live cards. Going to need to get lucky on this board.
Craig said that he put him on a pair automatically. He probably wouldn't have called if you put him on ace-king or ace-queen or queen-jack or king-queen. So Craig's got 2 live cards. Phil's life is on the line with pocket 9s. Here we go.
Little guys, please. One time. One time.
The flop is 10 king 4.
No waiting. Craig flops top pair, and Phil is really, really lagging behind. Now he's going to need to find one of 2 9s left in the deck.
And the turn is a 6, and so now it's down to 2 outs for Phil Martin's tournament life here in Blackhawk.
Go ahead and see the river, please.
The river is another 10. Phil was able to double up a couple of times, but in the end it was Craig Casino who's going to show him the door.
All right, Phil, so you came in with the short stack, but you hung around there for a while. You had luck on your side.
Then you wake up with a great hand, pocket nines. Talk us through that final hand.
Obviously, Craig's been a little aggressive, raising a lot of hands, so his range is pretty wide. I mean, I wake up with a pocket pair, I'm gonna have to play it there. So push all in, and he calls with a couple overs, and it wasn't my turn, I guess.
But it was your turn to go home in 5th place, just over $57,000. I mean, a great payday for you. And you talked about not liking the TV aspect of this poker game, but you seem to be pretty comfortable out there.
Yeah, I'm comfortable in any environment. I mean, it doesn't affect me. I mean, the cameras whatsoever. I just not the biggest fans of them, obviously.
Sure. Well, it was nice having you. No more TV. Let's go get you paid. Congratulations.
Thanks. Appreciate it.
Well, with the biggest prize pool ever on the line here at Golden Gates, we're going to have to shut it down for tonight. When we come back next time, we have 4 players left, all shooting for that nearly $300,000 first place prize. Now, do you think you've got what it takes to sit at our final table and win the unreal cash? Well, then log on to hptpoker.com to find out about an upcoming event that might be right in your backyard. For James Larson and Fred Bevel, I am Chris Hansen. We'll see you next time right here on the HPT.